Thanksgiving's coming up, and picking out the right bottle of whiskey is going to help elevate your meal and also maybe help get along with family. I'm going to be going through a few of my suggestions of ryes, bourbons, etc. that might pair well with your meal this Thanksgiving and also pair well with your family. So, we're going to check it out coming up. All right, I just have to say this, guys. I'm not going to be the guy that picks the low-hanging fruit and makes the joke about the distillery that is named after an animal that we usually consume on Thanksgiving. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to talk about that product. It's just overdone, and let the other guys do it. That was awkward. So if you are wanting to have a bourbon or a whiskey this year at Thanksgiving, it's kind of important to understand the different complexities and things that we have to go to pair with our meal. There's a lot of different dishes, and there's sweetness levels, savory levels, and we're going to have to figure out how to balance those. So if we are just wanting to have a bourbon that actually goes with our meal, there's a few decisions that we have to make. And if we make those decisions correctly, it can make the overall dining experience quite a bit better. And also, if you can share that information and share that knowledge with some of your harder to get along with relatives, maybe they'll enjoy it, or maybe it'll just make the dinner more enjoyable in itself. Now, there's a few questions that I have to ask. Do I want to go with something that's full-bodied and complex that will really balance nicely with the savory notes of, let's say, stuffing, gravy, mashed potatoes, and turkey? Or do I want something that's lighter and just a little bit more approachable for the rest of the family, and that will go well with the relish and with pumpkin pie? These are questions that we have to ask ourselves. So here are a few of my recommendations that I think would be good for anyone to consider this Thanksgiving. First of all, let's talk about ryes. I like ryes, especially during the holidays and things like that, because we eat a lot of rich foods, and with mashed potatoes and gravy, as well as all the different desserts that we are given. Ryes provide a really nice spice level, and sometimes they can even be a palate cleanser. I enjoy ryes in different cocktails, from an old-fashioned to a Manhattan. So you can utilize ryes in a lot of different ways that can be approachable for your family as well. But if you're drinking it neat, I like something like a Green River rye. This is a 95 proof rye. It will give you everything that you want out of a rye. It's pretty approachable. It's not going to blow the top or blow your head off with proof. So let's think about mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes, quintessential dish of Thanksgiving, but it can be very rich and it can coat the palate quite considerably. And I think a rye is a great thing to drink to kind of cut through that heaviness, that overall starchiness that mashed potatoes bring, and with the spiciness and just the overall complexity of a rye, I think that that is something that pairs really well with it. Now, if we're talking about dessert and richness, or if you like a little bit more proof, you can go with something like a barrel proof rye, like this one from Old Forester. That's going to give you a little bit more punch. It's going to just elevate those flavors a little bit more and really punch out some of those characteristics that we're trying to get rid of. Something like this pairs really well with rich dishes because it just provides you something that kind of cuts through it and allows you to go back and enjoy it again. Think red wine and red meat. They just pair well together. I think ryes and rich foods are something that can really go. So you guys will probably find me with an old-fashioned off the start, with something a little bit lighter to start the meal off, and about halfway through I'll probably be doing a heavier pour to cut through some of the heaviness of the meal that I have consumed, and also to get me ready for the discussion about politics. It's going to happen, guys. Prepare yourselves. So that's where I would consider with some ryes. So there's a lot of options out there. These are just two examples, but pick out your favorite rye. I think it'll be very applicable during Thanksgiving. So let's apply that same information to bourbons. Okay, so I want a bourbon that's lower proof, that's more approachable, that's good in different types of cocktails, as well as nice, neat. And I usually try to go something with a little bit of name value for my family, because that brings a little bit of excitement too. They like to see the bottles, things like that. So my first suggestion would be something like Buffalo Trace. Now, it doesn't have to be Buffalo Trace, but it's a 90 proofer. It's pretty approachable for most people. It goes good in about anything. You can sip it and eat. And the sweetness really pairs well with savory foods. I think with stuffing as well as with turkey, the sweetness pairs really well with that. I really enjoy just a nice neat pour of Buffalo Trace, and depending on the time of night, this is a really nice middle of the road sip, or a good old fashioned Manhattan, or bourbon smash if you want to spice it up with a little bit of zest and lemon. Sometimes that's a nice way to brighten up your meal. So yeah, Buffalo Trace is something that I would recommend. It doesn't have to be Buffalo Trace. There's lots of great bourbons that have a lot of different complexities and applications when it comes to Thanksgiving. So another thing that I would bring out is something like this, a Four Roses single barrel. Depending on the recipe, I know, there's a bunch of them, we get it. If you get fruity or spicy, I think that's really a good, like if we think in the rye world, right? Like what we were just talking about, it's really good with think with pumpkin pie, because you can get some sweetness and some different spiciness to kind of complement the spice of those type of foods. And it'll help you cleanse your palate and cut through some of the heaviness that we're eating. And I usually pour something like this right at the latter part of the night when the kids are fed and they're getting a little bit grouchy, but we're home. I sit and look at my wife and think how beautiful her and her family are, and grateful that we can come home and just have a nice quiet night. But during dessert, something that's a little bit higher proof, powerful, is a really good way to cut through the meal that you just had, and it pairs really well, I think, with something like dessert. So yeah, I'll be probably cracking this guy open Thanksgiving night. A few other recommendations that I would have, depending on what kind of meal you have and just overall the family and the way everything brings out, is a few higher proof, just different offerings, right? So we did some Buffalo Trace. I would recommend some wild turkey. The joke is there. Some families are going to love it, right? I did Four Roses. I think that is a really nice complex drink that a lot of people will enjoy. But if you want to bring the power, I would recommend something like Elijah Craig Barrel Proof or a Little Book or Booker's. Now these are going to be bringing a lot of different more savory notes. They're not going to be quite as sweet. They're going to be a little bit dry, and a lot of peanut butter. And they are really good as something that's just an adjustment from sweetness. So if you want some power and not so much sweet, I think some of these would be a really nice way to finish your night after a piece of pumpkin pie or whatever you guys have with your dessert. I'm a bread pudding guy, so a Little Book or Elijah Craig with a piece of caramel bread pudding, yeah, that's about right. I have all this sweetness, this richness, and I have something cutting through it with some punch to my palate. I just really enjoy that, and I think it pairs really well. But in the end, the best bourbon for Thanksgiving is the one that you enjoy the most. The one that you enjoy, right? It's a great holiday. We are honestly just trying to give thanks to having our family, having enough food, and all the things that we can be thankful for. So we can be thankful for the bourbon that we enjoy the most. It may not be the one that I enjoy the most, and you probably don't enjoy some of the ones that I enjoy. But this is a few suggestions that maybe help you out on this Thanksgiving. But picking out the right whiskey for your meal or during your meal may help elevate the overall dining experience. And that could even surprise some of those family members that, are trying to start fights at the table. Yeah. And maybe you can bring some people into the whiskey realm that kind of put their nose up to it, or judge you by how many bottles you have on your shelves behind you in your basement. Yeah. But hopefully some of this information can help make your Thanksgiving unforgettable. I just want to say thanks for going on this journey with me about different whiskeys that we can utilize to elevate our meals on Thanksgiving. Since you're here, please like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know your suggestions, your recommendations for this Thanksgiving. What's your go-to? And also, I want to know what your favorite side dish is. That's right, mine, it's got to be mashed potatoes and gravy. Love it. Love it. Appreciate you guys watching. Until next time, let's share some good whiskey with family and hopefully they appreciate it.